right, guys, today I guess we're going to talk about the Massport / Logan Airport mess, if you want to call it that. So let me lay this out there like this. Logan Airport, which is one of the busiest airports in the country, for some time it was being used as a shelter for illegal immigrants. And you may remember that. It was on the news quite a bit. And of course, this was during the Biden administration. And what happened is, due to the influx of people, the airport was essentially turned into some kind of makeshift housing facility. You probably saw the pictures. But the issue here is what's happening today, what's happening now. And that's what I want to talk to you about. So here's what's going on. Back in July of 23, Logan Airport was unofficially accommodating illegal immigrants, where they were using airport's resources and spaces that are funded by federal taxpayer dollars. And of course, that money is supposed to be for the passengers and things like security, travel infrastructure, so on and so forth, not necessarily shelters. So back in October of 2023, Senator Ted Cruz, they started an investigation on the impact of President Biden's immigration policies on these airports nationwide. And what it revealed was that Logan Airport, which of course is here in Boston, was at the center of this controversy, but it wasn't an isolated issue. It wasn't only happening here. There were a few other airports across the country that this was happening in as well. Now, this airport gets millions of dollars in federal funding. And of course, that's to maintain and improve the airport. And it's for the travelers. So when you think about it, when you turn Logan into a makeshift shelter, there's going to be some concerns raised. And that's why this is happening. That's why these people are involved. Because you have to think of it this way. If those funds are being reallocated to other to other things, you have to think about the waste, the fraud, and potential misuse of public money. That's realistically what's happening here. And, we're talking about, those are significant resources being diverted, and they're being diverted without any levels of transparency. And I'm going to get into that in a second. And this is all while you're taking funds from one place, you're putting into another, and those funds are basically being diverted, which could otherwise be used for stuff like security, infrastructure, stuff, things that the airport needs, right? Now, here's where the story takes a pretty wild turn. There is the Senate Commerce Committee. This is where they got involved. And their job is, at least to the best of their ability, is to make sure that taxpayer money, our money, is properly spent. So what they proceeded to do is send letters to Massport for some basic questions. Very simple stuff, guys. Like, how many migrants are there? Who is authorizing this? And more importantly, is who is paying for this, right? And guess what? Guess what happened after they asked these very basic questions? Nothing. Absolutely no response from Massport. And we're not talking about a missed phone call here. There were 9 separate attempts to contact Massport, and there was no response. No response at all. They were completely ignored. The Senate was completely ignored. So to put things into perspective, I was obviously researching other airports, right? Chicago O'Hare and JFK in New York, they immediately complied with the Senate's oversight requests. So you think to yourself, what is being hidden here? What is Massport hiding? Because this week, it's almost a year after Massport was pretending like they don't exist. The Senate committee finally said, enough is enough. We have to do something here. And they voted to subpoena Massport. Of course, we'll see what happens with that. This attempt at least would force them to provide the documents and basically try to explain themselves. So you need to ask yourself, and this is what's bothering me here. You really need to ask yourself, what the hell is this state hiding? When you use, let's say, public resources for purposes other than what they are intended for, wouldn't that suggest a lack of oversight and raise your concern, public concern, about the state's priorities? What are their priorities? I mean, does anybody care about the state's priorities? It's ridiculous. You know, the bigger picture, when you really think about this and you back up a little bit, at least this is the way I was thinking about it. The bigger picture here, at least for me, is that the behavior that's happening at Massport, this ends up spilling into everything else. And you see it. You see it. You know it. You see it. These situations like this, they're multiplicative. And what that means is that they not only add or cause more problems to existing problems, but they also amplify them. And in turn, they lead to some levels of a larger compounded impact. And then what happens is that impact starts to infect decision-making across the board. That's what that multiplicative means. And that's what's happening here, because there's a lack of transparency happening in Massachusetts. And you know, Massport they need to do the right thing. Somebody needs to do the right thing. On any of these topics we talk about, somebody needs to do the right thing here, or at least initiate the right thing. Because the taxpayers of Massachusetts, the travelers at Logan Airport, the American public deserve the transparency. Don't you think? Don't you think that you guys, we deserve some levels of transparency? It's not complicated. These things are not complicated. Just do what you need to do, right? Again, these people need to wake up on these issues. They are, again, to get into how this spills over, there are so many issues that are happening in Massachusetts right now. If you think of things like what's going on with energy and why is energy so expensive, you think about what's happening at White Stadium. You think about, let's say, the issues with, you know, Michelle Wu not necessarily being so transparent at her hearing and just not understanding where your monies are going, right? Like how much is being spent. It's ridiculous. And it's all levels of deflection. And it's really shameful when you really, again, dial it back and you start looking at it from an outside perspective. It's really unbelievable. We need help here in Massachusetts. But overall, I think Massport really should do the right thing and provide some clarity. Honestly, so much time has passed since this happened. Even the amount of, I forgot about the audit. I'm sorry, I'm thinking and talking here. I forgot about the audit too. Like the audit, like what is happening? But anyway, Massport needs to cough it up. And ultimately what may happen here is that any documentation or any sort of, you know, paperwork or data that they have on this, God only knows what they're going to provide when they do provide it, because hopefully the subpoena will stick and we'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's video. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.